My name is Matthew Langston, and what I'm about to share with you happened on April 9, 2017. I had spent most of my life rejecting the idea of God, and I didn't just quietly doubt, I was vocal about it. I saw religion as a safety blanket for people who couldn't handle reality. I believed we lived, we died, and that was the end of it. The thought of heaven or hell or any kind of afterlife seemed childish to me, stories for people who needed something to cling to when life didn't go their way. Everything changed on that spring afternoon. It started with this tightness in my chest like someone was sitting on me, and I kept brushing it off like it was just stress or maybe something I ate. But when my left arm went completely numb, I knew this wasn't something I could ignore anymore. My wife, Rachel, drove me to the hospital, and before I knew it, I was being rushed into surgery. The doctors told me they needed to perform emergency open-heart surgery, fast. I remember laying on the operating table, staring up at those blinding lights as the anesthesiologist told me to count backwards from 10. I got to 7, and then everything went black. But what came next wasn't what I expected. I was no longer in my body, I was floating above it. I could see the surgeons working, see my own chest cracked open, and I heard one of them shout, "We're losing him." But I wasn't afraid. I wasn't panicking. I felt something I had never truly felt in my life, complete peace. It was like every fear, every regret, every doubt I'd carried just melted away. And then I noticed a light. At first it was small, way off in the distance, but it started getting closer. Brighter. Warmer. I felt it pulling me in, not in a scary way but like I was being welcomed somewhere I had always belonged. As I moved toward the light, the hospital faded completely, and I found myself in a place I truly don't have the words to explain. It wasn't a physical place, but I was there. It was like being wrapped in love. Not the kind you get from people, not even from family, but something deeper. It felt alive. It felt like it knew me. It surrounded me and filled me at the same time. And just when I thought I couldn't feel anything more powerful, I saw him. A man standing in front of me, glowing with a warmth that was unlike anything I'd ever known. I didn't have to ask who he was. I just knew. It was Jesus. The moment my eyes met his, I felt everything inside me break, in the best possible way. I had spent my whole life mocking the very idea of him, brushing off anyone who claimed to believe. And yet, here he was, standing in front of me, not with anger, not with resentment, but with this look of pure understanding. He smiled at me, and I swear in that one smile, I saw every mistake I'd ever made, and forgiveness for every single one of them. It wasn't like he needed me to explain anything. He already knew me inside and out and still loved me anyway. I didn't know what to say. I felt small. I felt ashamed. I wanted to drop to my knees and apologize for every time I'd laughed at someone for their faith, for every time I arrogantly told people that believing in God was just weakness. But before I could even form the words, Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder. And when he did, everything, and I mean everything, changed. His touch wasn't just physical. It was like it reached through every part of me and wiped away all the anger, all the doubt, all the fear. I started crying, not from pain, but from this overwhelming sense of love and relief. He looked at me and said, "Welcome, Matthew. I've been waiting for you." We talked, not with our mouths but with our hearts, if that makes any sense. He showed me my life, not as a list of events, but as a series of choices and how those choices rippled out into the lives of others. I saw the good I had done, even the small things I thought didn't matter, like helping a stranger pick up groceries or being kind to someone when I didn't feel like it. But I also saw the harm. I saw the times I was cold or impatient or hurtful without even realizing it. The words I spoke that wounded people. The moments I could have made a difference but didn't. And still, he didn't judge me. He didn't condemn me. He just helped me understand. It wasn't about shame. It was about growth. It was about truth. I could feel that he wanted me to learn, not feel worthless. When I asked him why he would show himself to someone who had spent decades denying him, his answer was simple, and I'll never forget it. He said, "Because you needed to know that I've always loved you. even when you didn't believe in me." Those words shattered me in the most healing way possible. It was like every wound I didn't even know I had was being closed up, one by one. I felt whole for the first time in my life. I didn't want to leave. I would have stayed in that place forever if I could. The peace, the love, the complete lack of fear, it was unlike anything I had ever experienced on earth. But Jesus told me something that shook me just as much as seeing him did. He said, "It's not your time yet. There's more for you to do." I didn't understand at first. I thought my time was up. My heart had stopped. I had literally died. But he explained that my story could help others, that there were people I was meant to reach and lives I was meant to impact. I remember begging to stay, silently pleading not to go back to the world I had come from. But he just smiled again so gently and said, "You'll carry this with you. You're not alone. And I will be with you even when you can't see me." The next thing I knew, I was slammed back into my body like waking up from the deepest sleep imaginable. Pain shot through my chest and everything around me was chaos. Lights, voices, hands moving fast. I heard a doctor yell, "We've got him back," and realized they had managed to revive me. But even with all the noise and confusion, I couldn't stop thinking about what I had just experienced. It didn't feel like a dream. It didn't feel like a vision or a hallucination. It felt more real than anything else I had ever known. And as strange as it sounds, I didn't feel afraid anymore. I was different. Something in me had shifted forever. The recovery wasn't easy. My body had been through a trauma most people don't come back from. But honestly, that was nothing compared to what I was dealing with on the inside. How was I supposed to explain to people what I'd seen? How could I look my wife, my friends, my co-workers in the eye and tell them that I had met Jesus? The same Jesus I had spent years denying existed. At first, I didn't tell anyone except Rachel. She could see something in me had changed even before I said a word. Eventually, I started sharing small pieces with a few people I trusted. And to my surprise, most of them didn't call me crazy. They listened. Some even cried. I think they could feel that what I was saying came from a place of truth. As time went on, I couldn't keep it to myself. It was like something inside me was burning, pushing me to speak. Not to preach, not to convert anyone, but just to tell the truth about what had happened. I started sharing my experience more openly, and while not everyone believed me, most people couldn't deny how much I had changed. I wasn't the same cold, skeptical man they used to know. I had more patience, more compassion, and more awareness of how my words and actions affected others. Even my daughter, who had inherited my old sarcastic streak, pulled me aside one night and said, "I don't know what happened to you, Dad, but I like it." I started going to church, which shocked even me. Not because I thought I had to, but because I wanted to. I wanted to understand more, to connect with others who had experienced something even remotely close to what I had. I started reading the Bible, not out of obligation but curiosity. Every page felt different now. Every verse had a weight and a beauty I had never noticed before. I also began volunteering at a community shelter downtown, not to feel good about myself, but because I remembered how Jesus had shown me how even the smallest acts of love can change lives. It was like I had been given a second chance, not just at life but at living with purpose. Still, not everything was easy. Some people I used to be close to drifted away. A few thought I had lost my mind, or that I had been brainwashed during my recovery. I can't blame them really. If I hadn't lived through it myself, I might not have believed it either. But I knew what I saw. I knew what I felt. And no matter how hard it was to explain, I refused to let fear or shame keep me silent. There were moments when doubt crept in, especially during tough days. But then I'd remember his face, his voice, the way it felt to be wrapped in that light. And I'd hold on to that truth like an anchor. Now, every morning I wake up feels like a gift I used to take for granted. I don't look at life the same way anymore. I used to move through my days thinking everything was random, that we were just here by chance, and that nothing really mattered in the end. But now I know, deeply, unshakably, that there is something greater, that we are loved beyond measure, that there is purpose in our pain, meaning in our existence, and a God who sees us, even when we don't see Him. I still have struggles. I still face moments of weakness, of frustration, even of doubt. But the difference is now I know I'm never alone in them. The experience didn't make me perfect. I still mess up. I still have to work on being patient, kind, and selfless every single day. But the man I am now is not the man I used to be. And that change didn't come from me, it came from what I experienced on that operating table, from the love I felt in the presence of Jesus. I believe He sent me back for a reason, and part of that reason is telling this story. Not to scare anyone, not to convince anyone, but to share the truth that death is not the end, that love is real, and that it's never, ever too late to open your heart, no matter how far gone you think you are. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. If you're someone who's searching, someone who's skeptical, or maybe someone who's just hurting, I want you to know you're not alone. You are deeply loved even if you don't feel it right now. And no matter what you've done or what you believe, there is a God who knows your name and hasn't given up on you. If this story touched you in any way, I hope you'll consider subscribing, sharing this video, or leaving a comment below. You never know who might need to hear it. Thank you and God bless you.